Hello everybody and welcome back to World of Warships Legends. My name is Spartan Elite 43 and tonight we have something a bit different that we're going to try out. This is my first attempt at doing after-action commentary on a paid competitive tournament match between Pacific Bay and Warfare at Sea Atlantic. This is the South Pole Bracket Finals in the Winter Cup Tournament, hosted by the European Fleet Network, and the winner of this match goes on to the Winter Cup Finals to face the winner of the North Pole Bracket to determine the Winter Cup champions. Just a quick heads up for those that are interested, there are a couple of new tournaments coming up that are the Ocean Cup and the Sky Tower Tournament. Registration starts soon, and I will leave a link to the European Fleet Network official Discord server in the pinned comment for those interested in entering their fleet in future tournaments. I also want to give a special shout out to MetaJerk and Tactic Angel, who did a live commentary of these matches on MetaJerk's stream last weekend. I will leave links to their channels down in the pinned comment as well. And finally, thank you to Yonkonomics for sending me his POV stream of this match to edit and break down for you guys. Link to his channel also in the pinned comment. Now, with that being said, let's get to the action. Alrighty, so the first match is going to be on Islands of Ice. Now, as far as I'm aware, this is a best 2 out of 3 scenario. So the team that wins 2 matches first wins the series, right? And they will go on to compete in the Winter Cup Finals to decide who is the champion. Now, before we get started, as this is a competitive match, there's going to be less focus on individual play and more focus on the bigger picture at large. We'll be referencing the minimap quite a bit, so keep an eye on that. And then also, one of the things that we're going to have to pay attention to is cap control, map control. Those two things alone are going to play a huge role in who is the winner and who is the loser in these matches. Anytime you get 2 competitive teams in an environment, the team that is able to establish cap control early usually ends up winning the match. Not always, but it takes a huge effort on the part of the other team to then bring that back. Now, we will go ahead and call out misplays as we see them. Obviously, I mean no disrespect to any of the competitors. I'm simply calling what I see, okay? So please do not take offense, and if you guys disagree with me with anything that I say during the match, leave it down in the comments below. I am all ears. All right, this is my first attempt at this. Now, first things first, we've got both teams already trying to establish where they're going to set up their defenses, essentially. You don't see a lot of crazy rushing early on in a match. Now, you do see that the friendlies, in this case, Warfare at Sea, they are actually taking the Bravo cap right off the bat, which is huge because the Bravo cap is usually the hardest one to keep, or the hardest one to take. So if you can get into Bravo early and take it, that's going to be a huge advantage because the flank caps are the hardest ones to then are the hardest ones to lose late in the game, right? Everybody generally goes forward, grabs the outer caps, and then moves for the Bravo cap. Now, this is only an 8v8, right? So, because of that, the spawns are a little bit different. It looks like on both teams, the spawns have been Alpha and Bravo, with very little of anything at Charlie. So this means that there's going to be a lot of fighting over Alpha, and eventually that fighting is going to carry into Bravo. Right? That is how this match should play out. Now, whoever decides to get into Charlie, if anybody decides to push Charlie, will have a huge advantage. Now, right off the bat, we see that the friendly Saipan has killed the enemy Lo Yang. This is a huge, huge advantage for Warfare at Sea. I'm not sure exactly what got into that scenario, but the carrier player for Warfare at Sea being able to find and kill a destroyer early, especially a destroyer as prolific as a Lo Yang. Remember, the Lo Yang is a gunboat destroyer that has good torps as well, but it has that extended range sonar that comes in so clutch and help getting rid of other destroyers, right? Even beating the sonar of a Friesland, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, with that being said, the destroyer choices in this game or in these competitive matches is pretty clutch because you're going to have carriers, obviously, in this particular format. So with carriers being in the game, you know that you need a destroyer that's capable of dealing with carriers in one way or another. You'll see this with pan-European destroyers quite a bit because obviously they've got ridiculous AA, so they can fend off a lot of carriers, right? Now, Yonkonomics has pushed out towards the outside edge, utilizing island cover where he can. His destroyer has managed to grab the alpha cap early, and now we've got an Ochakov that's been spotted here that is angled pretty nicely for a battleship. If you ever get into a situation where you're shooting at a light cruiser, especially a Russian light cruiser, and they're angled like this, he is turning to kind of bow tank here a little bit, but we'd expect him to turn out here. So Yonkonomics goes ahead, takes that shot, and I do believe he's going to get a very good result here because, I mean, it looked like a good shot. There's half the health of the Ochakov. Another huge swing. Now that Ochakov has no choice. He was probably thinking about pushing in, maybe using his radar. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure the Ochakov has radar. And I know the two teams both had an Ochakov. One had a mines. I think the enemy had a mines. And the Warfare at Sea, I keep getting them confused. So Warfare at Sea, obviously the blue team, and Pacific Bay is the red team in this particular fight. Okay, so Pacific Bay had an Ochakov and a mines, and Warfare at Sea went with an Ochakov and a Chapayev. Okay, so they have 2 radars, whereas the enemy, the Pacific Bay, have the 1 radar. Okay, now as we push in, we also have to be aware that there's still a destroyer out here. You still don't want to put yourself in a crossfire, but if you look at the minimap, look at the majority of the enemy ships. Notice how they're all out of range of Yonkonomics guns here. Now, I don't know exactly Yonkonomics' build here, but I can assume that, you know, he's got decent range on these guns. It's most likely an accuracy build. You want as much consistency as possible in these sort of games because every shot's going to count, right? But as these guys push in, they know that the Ochakov is low, so that's a huge advantage for them. There's a battleship here, which we don't know exactly what it is. I didn't see it right off the bat. But we know that they have an enemy Alabama, I believe, and an enemy Lion on their team. So there's only two choices it could be, and here it is, the Lion. Okay, now the Lion is a good choice because of its healing abilities, but the problem with it is that you have to survive long enough to use those heals, okay? If you put yourself in a situation where you can be dealt with pretty quickly, those heals really don't mean a whole lot. And then other than that, all you're really giving your team is some high explosive potential. So I personally wouldn't take the Lion into a competitive environment like this, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not the competitor. But you do get those huge heals, so if you put yourself in a good position, you're going to be fine. Now, Yonkonomics is actually doing a really good job. He's not been spotted. He comes around the corner, he waited, and now he's got the Ochakov dead to rights, and that, oh my god, he got robbed. Maybe didn't lead him just enough, but the Ochakov was angled a little bit away. Ochakov was kind of flat broadside, but not really. He just got unfortunate there. Now, the enemy aircraft carrier is a Kaga, and he's got some torpedoes coming in, which we can expect to be pretty nasty, hard-hitting torps. But Ochakov, again, over angles here. We got a beautiful look into him, and again, Ochakov very lucky to not just be flat-out removed there. But we did destroy one of his turrets, potentially. Now, sometimes there's a glitch where you hit somebody really hard. It says that you destroyed a turret, but you didn't actually. And this is absolutely a huge misplay for the Pacific Bay team. You cannot have your carrier get spotted like this. You've got to keep your carrier safe at all costs because those things can be absolutely critical in these kind of games, as we already saw with the opening kill on the enemy destroyer. So here we get a good shot out. Kaga's down. So that's their 2 destroyers and their carrier. Arguably their 3 most crucial players already gone. And then on top of that, these guys already have the advantage in cap control. So everything is pushing Pacific Bay to be aggressive at this point. You're down ships, you're down cap control. You've got to put yourself in better positionings. They have not done a very good job of cap control up to this point. They did move in and try to grab Alpha, but Warfare at Sea being in a better position just looks like they're communicating better. Now, obviously, I would expect all these teams to be either in their own Discord server or a call, whether it be party chat or whatever. But we are double fired here, as you could expect. You got an Ochakov, and the Ochakov hits him and gets the third fire, activating the Fight Fire with Fire damage con, which is huge for Yonkonomics. Now, the torpedo's coming in, flanking the Lion here. Lion's just doing everything he can to reverse at this point, keeping himself relatively well-angled or bow in, but Yonkonomics going for superstructure. Gets a terrible roll, ends up hitting the turret face of the Lion. Lion deciding to focus on other ships instead of getting rid of the Yonkonomics here. Yonkonomics uses the rear turret of Justice on the Ochakov. Is he going to be able to take him down? One shell to rule them all. Gets the lucky one shot that hits the target. You'll love to see it. Taking down the Ochakov for his second kill of the game. And I would imagine that Lion's not long for this world as well. He's burning. He's got to just shoot the superstructure. Again, he knocks out a turret and does decent damage. And down goes the Lion, and that's the match. The enemy loses on points. But not a great showing for Pacific Bay in this particular game. There were a lot of misplays. I think the destroyer dying early, the carrier being caught out there, definitely unacceptable. You gotta try to preserve those ships as much as possible early on. You can't win a game in the opening minute of the match, but you can darn sure lose it, right? Now this match, this is the second match in the series. We are on Warrior's Path. Sorry, had to think of the name of it. But we're on Warrior's Path, and in this one, I did catch the tail end of this match, but I'll be honest, I'm gonna reserve what I already know, and we're just gonna focus on what's going on. Now, right off the bat, we see that there's a group of enemy ships at the Bravo Cap. There's a group of friendly ships at the Bravo Cap. There is a battleship, which is the Lion, on our cap, moving in towards our destroyer, who's already grabbing the cap. And one thing that you can see again is that Warfare at Sea wastes no time in trying to establish cap control. This can be a good thing, but it can also be a very bad thing. Depending on where the enemy carrier is, if you're charging straight into the cap like this, you're giving yourself up to be potentially taken out early because everyone knows where you're at. Now, we do spot the enemy Lo Yang temporarily. The carrier, once again, doing a fantastic job of finding the enemy destroyers and harassing the crap out of them. Ochakov trying to establish some control on the outside flanks of the map, probably trying to put himself in a position to be able to help with radar on the enemy, on the Warfare at Sea destroyer. The carrier doesn't seem to be over here just yet, but the friendly carrier, with the help of our radar and Yonkonomics, is doing a good job at trying to wrap up the cap. Now, meanwhile, our other destroyer for Warfare at Sea is in the Bravo cap, completely uncontested. Now, the carrier's in the neighborhood, but you can probably assume that he's not being attacked by the carrier because the carrier's going after the battleship right now. Now, again, this is just me being critical. These are competitors, right? These guys are competitive players. Going after a battleship early in the match when you could be going after destroyers is a misplay for a carrier. In these kinds of matches, we've already seen how quickly getting rid of a destroyer early on can be crucial to your team. Now, I have no idea what the other destroyer is. Whether or not it's got a smoke, it most likely does. If it is indeed the... actually, I think we had the Lo Yang on our side, right? So it would have been the Oosterjotland, I believe, or Friesland over on the Bravo cap, in which case they don't have smoke. But that could be a reason why the carrier decided not to go after him as well. But again, I feel like you've got to try to support your team as best as possible at trying to get rid of destroyers. Now, with the majority of the force of the Pacific Bay team at the Charlie cap, they did manage to get a cap early, but they've given up 2 caps to Warfare at Sea, which gives Warfare at Sea the entire advantage. Now, that being said, Oosterjotland on the enemy team has taken down our Azure Lane Chapayev, which is a little bit crazy, but at the same time, it's a misplay that can be dealt with. It's a radar gone. It's a huge swing, but that also tells the friendly carrier the direction that destroyer's in, right? Now, the friendly carrier is currently flying through the gap, trying to keep the enemy team spotted. The enemy carrier is also flying into the Bravo cap currently. Meanwhile, Yonkonomics is just being patient. He doesn't have to do anything crazy here. When you have cap control, when you have the advantage, you can afford to be patient, okay? It's up to the enemies to feel that timer, the pressure to put themselves in better positioning going into the mid to late game. Now, this game's already showing that the Pacific Bay has done a better job other than giving up the center cap right off the bat. Now, if I'm the carrier in this situation, denying the center cap is absolutely critical, okay? The outside edges, you can afford to give those up early in the match, but the center cap you cannot afford. That is a swing cap that is very difficult to take back late game. So stopping the enemy team from taking that cap early is huge. A 1-to-1 cap, you trade, right? You're both gaining points at the same rate. But giving up a second cap means that the enemy is outpacing you in points and puts your team in a deficit, okay? Now, with that being said, because of the cap control, it doesn't matter that we already lost a ship because we have the points lead, right? So the enemy is being forced into pushing into the alpha cap. Now, once again, Yonkonomics' patience is getting rewarded here. The enemy is forcing themselves into the cap. The Loyang is caught out, and Yonkonomics is going to come around the corner. He actually does make a misplay here. He fires his guns a little bit too soon, hoping that he could get that shot onto the destroyer before the destroyer disappeared. I get the odds, or I get why he shot there, but if you take that extra split second, wait for your guns to get around the corner. If the destroyer gets away for now, that's fine. At least you don't waste your shot. Now, Ochakov out here he got a triple fire on the first shot as Yonkonomics comes around the corner. And with a Lion here and the Ochakov, you'd expect these guys to potentially be able to get some serious permafires on. This is also a situation where you want to get a hold of your carrier and be like, hey, we've got this player potentially on a damage control. If you can get over there, drop some torps on him, maybe you get a permaflood, that sort of thing. But we are on a single fire. Yonkonomics, again, we've pushed the enemy out of the cap for the moment. The Loyang is reversed into the cap at the moment, so he is still there if your team can do something about it. The Loyang was very low health, so you'd expect the carrier to come over and try to remove the Loyang if they're communicating. And it looks like that's exactly what the carrier is thinking. Now, what I want you guys to pay attention to is that the enemy has lost their destroyer that was on that right flank, the one that managed to kill the friendly Ochakov, and they've also lost their other battleship, which was an Alabama that was also on the Delta Cap. So now that that side of the map has been essentially wiped out, the only thing that is left over there is a couple of cruisers. We have the Ochakov over here. We have yet to see the other cruiser. There's a cruiser that has yet to be spotted to my knowledge. No. Yes, there is one cruiser that is yet to be spotted. The mines is spotted in the center of the map, and now we see where the other cruiser is as well. And these guys this is what I was talking about with the center of the map being so critical in these sort of competitive environments. Giving up that center cap is absolutely a misplay. You have to use your resources to defend that center cap. Do not let that fall into the enemy's hands early in the match, because taking it back mid to late game is very difficult, because both teams are set up in a crossfire over the middle of that middle cap, right? So it's very difficult for these guys to hide. Now, what I want you also to pay attention to is we know there's a Loyang nearby. Loyang did just try to torp us. The mines take some huge hit here. I don't know if it was a friendly shot that hit him, or if it was a... I think it had to have been. It had to have been the battleship that shot him, I think, because I don't think the carrier would have had a chance to hit him there. Not yet, anyway. The torps were on their way from the carrier, but we get a shot out on the mines, and we don't do a lot of damage, but we do enough to slow him down. And maybe it was J-Trank and the Ochakov that managed to do some damage there. I think the other battleship managed to get around the corner. Now, but that battleship is able to take the Charlie cap completely uncontested. And this is what I'm talking about with the center cap being so critical. Like, you can always switch or swap those outside caps. Those caps are very easy. You've always got, you know which direction the enemy is likely to be in, and you can dodge that. Now here, Yonkonomics recognizes that the enemy Lion is pushing him. Now if the Lion is pushing with the Destroyer, Yonkonomics is about to be in a bad situation. But if the Lion is alone, he has a chance to bully the Lion a little bit here. Because again, the Lion, as good as it is, just doesn't have that ability to survive most engagements. And again, here we have another shot. Yonkonomics shoots a little low here. I think he should have just went and taken what the enemy gave him, which would have been superstructure. You're not going to get a huge hit there. He's turning towards you. He wastes a couple of shells on the island. We've all been there. And again, not being super critical, just pointing out what I see. But this is something that is definitely going to need to be fixed for Yonkonomics here. You have got to make sure that in this situation that you don't end up trading here. Okay, you've got to keep yourself alive. Gets a huge hit and a Citadel through the bow. And at this point, all he has to do is turn away from the Lion and try to dodge, because the Lion has nothing to lose here. He's burning, he's healing what he can, but he's going to get the ram and take Yonkonomics out as well, which is a huge play for Pacific Bay. So again, in that situation, you get that big hit, you've got to get out of the way, okay? The Alabama, the Massachusetts, they both have fantastic rudders that allow them to slip by those situations. You just got to react a little bit quicker there. Now, a lot of people run propulsion mod instead of steering gears, so still probably could have gotten out of the way of that if he recognized that that was going to be a ram a little bit early. Probably surprised him that he got the Citadel through the cheek. When you get a battleship turning towards you like that, we always talk about shooting through the turret cheeks. When they're turning towards you like that, that's absolutely what we want, right? Now, Lo Yang is spotted. We get a nice little overview camera. But the Lo Yang getting very lucky here. J Trank and the Ochakov, I believe, is just swinging and missing all day here, which is just unfortunate. There he did, I think, land a shell, but once again, Lo Yang gets away scot-free for the most part. They did swap the caps, but unfortunately, Warfare at Sea still has the ship advantage and the points advantage because they still maintain a 2-cap advantage. The enemy team grabbed Charlie and then went all in to try to grab Bravo, and by that point, they were put themselves in crossfires, right? So we know we still have the one cruiser that's out there on the Charlie cap behind the islands. We had the carrier out there, but with a 200-point advantage and only 3 minutes to go, the enemy doesn't really have any options here. The Lo Yang is very low. He really can't afford to go try to take on a radar cruiser. J Trank has moved into the Alpha cap here to put even more pressure on the enemy team. So at this point, really the only option that they have is to kill everybody on Warfare at Sea, and we just don't think that's going to happen. There are some low ships on the right side, so it's not impossible, and the carrier is trying to help the Lo Yang out by trying to get rid of the Ochakov here. But you'll notice that the friendly battleship is low and in between two mountains here, which in theory should make him easy game for the carrier. Now, he recognizes that the cruiser's coming around the island on him. This should be the Ochakov. And Ochakov is going to get caught through the bow side plating. No Citadel for the battleship. Does get a decent chunk, but most likely just overpinned him there. And with that, the Ochakov gets to come in and just DPM him. But the Saipan doing what Saipans do best, which is drop 4 torpedoes right into the broadside and absolutely nuke that cruiser. So far, in these 2 matches that we've witnessed, I think that the Warfare at Sea CV, the carrier player, has been the better player of the 2 carriers, okay? Everyone else, I feel like they've done their parts here and there. The destroyers, obviously, for Warfare at Sea, being able to get those 2 cap controls, or those 2 caps in both games is huge. But again, I think that comes down to the carrier player needing to do a little bit better to try to focus those destroyers down, especially on the key cap, which is the center cap. when we have these sorts of matches, you've got to prioritize, and one of the things that you need to prioritize is that center cap. I can't stress it enough. You cannot give up that center cap that easily and allow the team to force you to make moves. Now here we've got a beautiful shot from the New Jersey that absolutely took half the health off the carrier, and Lo Yang goes down by the carrier, I believe. It may have been the destroyer that took him out. I didn't get a chance to really see it, but with less than a minute left and only the carrier remaining, this is going to be a win for Warfare at Sea. And they are going to move on to take on the winners of the North Pole bracket to see who wins and who is the champion of the Winter Cup. So I hope you guys have enjoyed. This is our first look into any sort of competitive gameplay for World of Warships Legends, but I thought it would be something that would be fun to draw attention to. If you guys want to see more of this, absolutely let me know down in the comments below. I will try to get with the European Fleet Network and the people that are streaming for their teams in the higher brackets so that we can make these kind of videos happen when it's time, obviously. But again, I want to give a shout out to Meta and Tactic Angel, who did a live commentary version of this on Meta's channel. Again, links will be down in the description below. And congrats to Warfare at Sea for winning the South Pole bracket and heading to the championship of the Winners' Cup. So, again, if you guys like what we're doing, punch the like button, leave a comment below, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, I will see you in the next video.